Step right up, ladies and gentlemen, step right up. Be prepared to be stunned and amazed. We have a host of miracle cures on display for you, for your edification and entertainment. See the incredible Spectrochrome. It cures everything from intestinal problems to cancer with colored lights. Marvel at the baffling omnipotent oscilloclast. It diagnoses and cures illness using vibrations. Gasp at the amazing prostate gland warmer. It improves one's sex drive by heating up the rectal area. You'll see these and many other such wonders, but you'll wonder, how did anyone ever think that these things worked? Welcome to the Museum of Questionable Medical Devices. I'm the founder, Bob McCoy. What we have is a collection of quack devices on loan from the American Medical Association, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, and other sources. Experts tell me that it's the world's largest display of such quack things, and I'll be your guide through the Quackery Gallery. This is my trusty assistant, Bill. This is a McGregor Rejuvenator from 1932, made in Seattle, Washington by a man who made 5 of them. Uses radio waves in the entire cabinet. It uses infrared and ultraviolet, and the whole thing becomes magnetic. It's supposed to reverse the aging process. They weren't very successful. When the company failed, he apparently put him into a warehouse there for storage, left him there for 40 years. He never went back to get them. He abandoned them because the McGregor Rejuvenator couldn't rejuvenate a fingernail, much less a whole person. This is called an oscilloclast. This worthless device was invented in 1900 by a physician in San Francisco named Albert Abrams. He believed you could diagnose a person's illness by measuring the vibration rate of a person's blood. The patient didn't even need to come to his clinic to be treated. He could mail in a blood sample. Dr. Abrams had a healthy young man stand on a metal plate while he percussed his abdomen, and he compared the blood in the machine with the thumping that he did on the patient who was standing in front of him, who was usually his chauffeur. And then he could diagnose patients by the vibrations that came from his spine. He diagnosed most of his patients as having syphilis because he had a cure for syphilis that he sold for $100. Dr. Abrams could also determine a person's religion by thumping on their abdomen at various hard spots. He was able to tell the abdomen of a Catholic, Methodist, Seventh-day Adventist, Theosophist, Protestant, and Jew. Why he couldn't ask what their religion was, I have no idea. He was considered a real charlatan. The AMA considered Albert Abrams the king of quackery. Over 44 manufacturers made these devices, and some 3,500 healers used them in the 1920s and 30s. And would you believe that the whole idea has been reinvented and people are now making Abrams machines claiming to do the same cures of people? Of course, the modern ones are just as worthless as the ones from the 1920s were. This is a 1902 Cool Pate for brain fag. It's for brain workers. It's supposed to cool their brain off and cure headaches. You put it on your head like this as a heat sink. What temperature should your brain be at anyway? This is an orgone energy accumulator invented by a psychiatrist by the name of Wilhelm Reich. He believed that all of life was controlled by a mysterious blue gas called orgone. It was responsible for the evolution of man, for gravity, made the sky blue and the stars twinkle, and it also caused your body to absorb this blue gas to heal various medical conditions.
The FDA outlawed this in the 1950s, and he had a trial in which he was convicted and sent to prison for 2 years. The way it works, it has an organic exterior, no electrical connections to it. Inside are some galvanized sheet metal plates, but in between that are some sandwiches of steel wool. Patients would sit in this and accumulate all this energy from this blue gas. It cured any number of diseases. You can see, Bill, what are you doing inside of there?
I'm soaking up orgone energy.
The next device I'd like to demonstrate for you are these AccuDots. These are magnetic Band-Aids that are supposed to remove the pain from arthritis. I've had a sore wrist for a couple of days. I've had these on for 2 days, but they've not helped a bit. This is a prostate gland warmer. Probably the most unpleasant device we have in the museum. It's a device that was heated and it was inserted in the rectal anatomy. The temperature was regulated by the size of the light bulb that you put in it. Would you believe it was patented by the U.S. government in 1917? Its stimulating effect supposedly improved a person's abdominal brain. Did you know men had abdominal brains? Anyway, it was supposed to bring about normal, healthy conditions, thus relieving an aggravating case of several diseases. Of course, something it couldn't possibly do. Over the years, quacks have devised all kinds of scams and schemes to exploit people who wanted to lose weight. This is a real winner from 1946. Trim Dieting Aid cigarettes. Whenever you feel hungry, instead of reaching for a snack, reach for one of these filter-tip cigarettes. And it's guaranteed to help you lose weight because it says so on the back of the package. Back in the 1950s, people sold slimming soap, supposedly made from seaweed. It was supposed to draw all the fat out from your body if you washed yourself with this Chinese soap.
Bill, you're now being treated in a 1929 vibrating oscillator. This device supposedly relieved the pain of arthritis and nephritis. The machine is pulsating at the rate of 3,480 beats per minute. Now we're trying to reduce weight by shaking off any excess fat on your lower torso. How does that feel, Bill?
Shaky.
Have you had enough?
Yes.
We'll shut it off then.
Thank you.
Perkins tractors were the first medical device ever patented in 1798. One of them is iron and the other is brass. And supposedly, when you drew these two nail-like devices across a patient's skin, it drew out all the noxious energy that caused various diseases such as rheumatism and so forth. Ouch! Dr. Perkins' son took some to England and sold them to a physician there who made fake wooden tractors. And he found out that his patients responded to the fake wooden tractors as being wonderful devices that cured our arthritis. And so he wrote a medical report, the title of which was, "Of the Imagination as a Cause and Cure of Disorders of the Body." It's ironic that the first medical patent was for a quack device. This is the amazing Solarama bedboard from 1976. It looks just like plain floor tile to the untrained eye. But what you can't see is it has a special chemical coating on the outside of this that affects the rays that come through this when you slip it under your mattress and plug it in. It regenerates missing organs, regrows missing limbs. It also cures brain tumors, cancer, pain from childbirth, and reduces high blood pressure. They got $150 for these in 1976.
And on the green label on the bottom of this, it says, accept only the genuine solar amber board. Don't accept any substitutes.
Bill, how long have you been sitting there?
Couple of hours. I heard this machine stimulates hair growth.
I hate to disappoint you, Bill, but you could sit there all day and it wouldn't grow one bit of hair on your head. This was the least successful product ever made by the Crosley Radio Company. They believed that by alternating air pressure and vacuum in this dome, it pulled out those hair follicles to make hair grow. Patients sat here for 2 20-minute sessions a day. Unfortunately, it did not work. But Bill, if you want to try something really that might work better, let's try the blood rub. To put this on your head like that, it was used in barber shops. Patrons sat under it for about 15 minutes and massaged their scalp with the mistaken idea that it made hair grow. Probably did more damage to the head than the barber could ever do. How do you feel about that, Bill? Is that enough?
Yeah, yes, please.
Not very pleasant, is it?
These necklaces were called Boyd's batteries. They were invented in 1879 by a British physician, Dr. Boyd. He believed that they would generate electricity through the human body when worn around a patient's neck. They were dissimilar metals that supposedly started a turbine effect when they rubbed against your skin and produced a flow of electricity into your chest to strengthen your heart. Boyd usually would put 8 or 9 of these around his neck and begin jumping around like he had St. Vitus dance to demonstrate how electrifying this device was. Today they've been revived and they're called a solar energizer that makes the same claim. It revitalizes the human body by generating electricity with this solar device in this tiny square. They were outlawed by the Food and Drug Administration in 1992.
This is a magical device from 1957. It's called a polarizer. It has mercury in it. When I shake this tube, the mercury creates an electronic field that causes all the pain and suffering of a patient to be drawn to this tube to make them feel better. The manufacturer also claimed that you could make bad wine taste good. Bill, you're sitting in front of a very famous device, one of the first things the government outlawed in 1938 when the FDA began regulating medical devices. It's called a spectrochrome. Dinshaw Gadiali, the inventor of this, sold 10,000 of these. It counts on the fact that these various colored lights that I have will bring your body into tune with nature. For example, the red was used for people who had heart problems or blood pressure problems. The purple here was used for people who had cancer to cure that. It had a certain ritual that you had to follow, though, to get a proper result from your treatment. You had to sit in front of it in the dark, facing north, under certain moon phases, in the nude. The inventor liked to be known as the ex-commander of the New York Police Air Force Reserve. He claimed to be a physician, a lawyer, a minister, a chiropractor, and several other things. The only certificate he had was one of release from the Atlanta Penitentiary. In the famous trial in 1938, one of Dinshaw Gadiali's witnesses claimed it had cured her epilepsy by sitting in front of this for several hours each week. Unfortunately, while she was on the stand, she had a seizure. He was fined $20,000 in 1938, and because of his advanced age, they waived the 3-year prison term. Spectrochromes were very popular up until about 1940, when most of them were outlawed and seized by the government. You feel any better now?
Yeah, tons.
Well, your treatment's over. We'll shut it off now.
The toughness radiation detector from 1975 was a device that supposedly was able to measure the vibration rate that came from illness in the body. To the untrained eye, it looks just like PVC pipe. But what you can't see, it has 6 opaque lenses in it that focused the energy from the patient's body back on the detector plate. And when the healer rubbed this plate, scanning the patient's body, wherever his finger stuck, that was an indication that some illness was being centered in that area. They sold for $2,400 a piece, but you had to bring it back once a year to have it tested, to calibrate it, to make sure it was still working. Almost 2,000 of these were buried by the FDA in a landfill in the early 1980s. They were completely worthless.
This is a Galfar battery made in Philadelphia in 1911. It has a battery that powers a little electric vibrator in this hairbrush that makes hair grow and cures headaches. Or you can take this little device and stick it in a bucket of water and turn on the electricity with your feet in the bucket, and it makes your tired feet feel better.
This next device was called a psychograph.
This is an antique phrenology machine invented in 1905, built in Superior, Wisconsin. It measures the bumps on a person's head to see what their personality is like.
Phrenology was one of the leading pseudosciences in the 1800s. Its idea was invented by Viennese physician Franz Joseph Gall in 1790, who believed that you could determine a person's character by measuring the bumps on their head. Dr. Gall used to see pictures of Mozart composing music leaning on his piano with his knuckle against his temple, so he figured, that must be the location of musical skills. He had two acquaintances who were low-life characters who had large bumps above their ears, so he called that part of the brain acquisitiveness. He cataloged the whole brain on these one or two anecdotal bits of information. Dr. Gall became a sensation, lecturing on this through Europe. Walt Whitman was a great supporter of phrenology and included many phrenological references in many of his poems and articles. Mark Twain, however, was a great debunker of phrenology and poked fun at it. Phrenology continued as really a parlor game for many years. In the early part of this century, it fell into disfavor. With the discovery of such things as psychology and psychiatry, they realized that our character wasn't determined by the bumps on her head.
Bill, come on over here. I need a patient to try this out today to see if it's going to work. Sit down here now. This will kind of tickle when it comes down on your head. Now it's going to rate your character 1 through 5, 1 being deficient, 5 being superior, on the 32 elements of personality that Dr. Gall invented in 1790 when he invented the idea of phrenology. Now think clean thoughts. Here we go now. Keep breathing now, you're doing fine. Well, it says you have a few things to work on. They're not too serious, though. Okay, I'll go over some highlights of what we found out here for you. There we go. This is all about you and a 75-year-old machine right here. This is a printout from your reading, Bill. You have a lot of sexual enthusiasm. Maybe you should tone that down a little bit. Your math skills are kind of poor, though. Do you have trouble balancing your checkbook?
Yeah.
You're quite deficient in your ability to use heavy machinery. Do you run a backhoe, a forklift truck very often?
No.
And your faith is way too high, Bill. Be careful you're not swept off your feet by some evangelist. Now that's an overview of your personality.
Thanks, Bob.
You're welcome. This is a Thompson and Plaster electrical cabinet from 1880. It's sort of a one-man band that does just about everything. It has an air compressor and a vacuum pump I'll turn on here, and that's useful in spraying these medications on eyes and ears and so forth. It also has a vacuum pump that would evacuate wounds or injuries. I'll turn that off. It also had 2 electrodes here which sent pulsating current to your body to make your muscles tense and relax. these two electrodes here would cauterize your wounds, which are popular in the 1880s. But this is the really major thing. This is a spark gap generator. Now, we close this circuit here, turn this on, and this creates a lot of static, I suspect, in your TV, so we'll turn it off. But anyway, when you had this turned on, you had a lot of different attachments. There's some 35 different attachments. This particular one would kill bacteria and germs. And down here in the drawer are the rest of these attachments. A lot of them I haven't the faintest idea what they are, particularly something like this. What could this possibly be used for when connected to this machine? I have no idea. The scary thing about this machine is that the whole top is electrified with 110 current. If this didn't electrocute some of the practitioners who mistakenly put their hands back here, I would certainly be surprised.
This device is called the Vital Power Vacuum Massager. The idea was that by turning the crank at the top, it produced a vacuum, which caused an erection. This was supposed to cure impotence and also progressively enlarge the penis. They sold for $15 in the 1920s. They are now making that again out of plastic, and it sells for $250. The people who made the Vital Power Vacuum Massager were only half right, because they now find that if you put a heavy rubber ring around the base of the engorged male organ, it has a 70% cure rate for impotent men. However, these sorts of devices have no permanent effect on the size of the phallus. It's probably just as well. If they worked, excessive use might produce monstrous results.
Bill, I'd like to give you a treatment with this electrometabograph that was invented in 1940. This machine is one of a series of machines that were made in the 30s and 40s based on the invention of Albert Abrams, someone who believed that you could diagnose and cure people of any disease by silent radio waves. This machine actually has a small radio transmitter in it, all kinds of dials and buttons to push, an oscilloscope, and we have a list of diseases that we can cure. Bill, I'd like you to put your hand on that metal plate. Now what we're going to do, we're going to push various switches here to cure things that might be bothering Bill at this time. Have you ever been bothered with jealousy?
Yeah.
Well, we're going to push this button over here to cure jealousy. Have you ever been suspicious?
Sure.
Maybe once in a while.
Yeah.
We're going to push this button here. Have you ever had a problem with suppressed urine? I'll take that as a yes. We'll press that button there. Is there anything else we might try and cure from you?
Well, I'm a little homesick, but I'm sure there's no dial here for that.
Well, no, number 172 cures homesickness. We'll push that button over here. You feel better?
Yeah.
With the discovery of radium in the early part of this century, it was thought that it had great curative powers. Many spas were set up, like at Battle Creek, Michigan, where Dr. Kellogg had a radium room where people were treated with radioactive salts and blankets. Other spas were set up at Saratoga Springs, where they had radium mud baths, radium regular baths in California, in Arkansas. Radium was thought to have great beneficial effects. So some clever entrepreneurs thought that if it's possible to sell something that you could use in your home, maybe they could capture some of the profit that was made from people who were spending it in radium spas. And they advertised, why spend money for an expensive train trip to some health spa when you can buy one of our water jugs, and it will make your water just as radioactive as you'll find at Saratoga Springs. One of the more popular so-called radium spas for the home was this Revigator, made in 1912. Hundreds of thousands of these were sold, and it was made in a variety of shapes and sizes. It has radium ore on the inside of this crock. Now we'll put this Geiger counter sensor down inside. You'll hear quite a loud response determining how much radium is in this crock. They tried to sell their customers on the idea that more illness was caused by improper water than any other reason, and
largely because the radioactivity was lost in the water that we were drinking.
Find the health you're looking for with the Grand Revigator. The power of radium will help you to become quite vigorous. Your water's wilted, it's the truth. So you need this fountain of youth. Prime it up every day, drink your disease away, and be robust. The shadow of a doubt upon the water that you drink, removed by the Revigator, it puts you back in the pink. Radioactivity makes you feel oh so healthy, you'll never grow old. Yes, and you'll feel bold, and you'll thank us for the wonderful Revigator.
This display here is featuring something called Rator plaque. There's a little silver disc inside that holder there that was very radioactive. When you put the Geiger counter to it, it jumps off the scale, as you can hear as we put this up here. It's a very dangerous product to be sold on the open market and would injure people if they put that little disc in their pocket and carried it around for about a week. The way it worked, you put this little vial of distilled water on top of that metal disc, and supposedly that got the water radioactive, which you could drink with the intended idea that it cured various ailments that you might have. A more common thing was this bag of radium ore here. This is called a Cosmos bag. Oddly enough, the fellow's name was Cosmos. Radium ore that is radioactive that an arthritis patient would put over their arm like this, and supposedly they would get a treatment that would make their arthritis go away. Another product that was quite popular, people took advantage of, was the fact that you could make radioactive garments to make you healthy. A company in Denver, Colorado produced a radioactive athletic supporter for weak, sagging men. They also produced radioactive suppositories for men and women, and they produced something called a bougie, a radioactive rod of wax that was inserted in the urethra to overcome the damage done from self-abuse. Now, another promotion of radium as a curative factor was done by a man named Bailey, who claimed to be a physician, but he wasn't. He thought that if you focused alpha radium rays on the endocrine glands of mentally ill people, they'd become sane. And he made a machine he thought did that. And so this is the basis of a feature story in the Philadelphia Ledger in 1924 showing all the people going from the mental hospital to the dispensary to be cured. One of Bailey's most popular items, and again he was not a physician, was this Radathor, little bottles of radium water that supposedly improved your sexual prowess. He sold 400,000 of these. They sold $1 a piece. A man in Pittsburgh named A.M. Byers drank 1,400 bottles of this to improve his sexual prowess, and it had a terrible effect because his upper and lower jaw fell off.
When this occurred, they realized that the indiscriminate use of radium in various medical products and schemes was a harmful thing, and much of it was taken off the market.
You've seen a demonstration of quack medical devices as used over the ages. Unfortunately, when some people are sick, they rely upon these kinds of treatments rather than seeking appropriate medical care.
That's what poor Bill did, and look what happened to him.
Remember, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.